Hey everyone, welcome to a new tutorial of Task Planner Backend. In the previous video, we have set up our database connection with our Nest.js project. In this video, we'll be creating certain modules and creating certain services which will be storing all of our data under our database. So if you haven't seen the previous videos, kindly watch them because those will be the basis for this video. Right, so here you can see I got my entity folder, and under my entity folder, we'll be creating bunch of tables. Right, so to shape the following tables, we'll be requiring the following entity, which will be nothing but simply a model for the entire table. So here under my entity, I will be getting an entity for task.entity.typescript. Right, simply create the following entity, and under the following entity, we'll be writing some modelized code. Right, so first of all, what you have to do, you have to simply write here entity. The following entity will be imported from a typo which will be nothing but a decorator, because everything that will be starting with the @ sign will be a decorator. Right, so under entity, I will be writing the following entity name to be task. Right, so I'll be calling my entire table to be a task. So I'll say the following entity name is a task. After this, I will be getting a new class which will be a task entity. Right, and the following thing will be extending here. So I'll simply write extend with a base entity, which will be also imported from a typo. Right, simply write the following code here, and at the last, you have to simply export the entire class. Right, so I'll simply say export the entire entity. And right now what I can do, I can simply write the auto fixable problems here. So it will fix all the red lines. Right, so this is the boilerplate structure for entire entity. First of all, we create a task, extend it to the base entity, and to overall the class, we have to write the following decorator of entity and write the entity name, which is task itself. Right, so under my entity, that is under my model, I'll be having a primary column. So here I'll simply say it will be having a primary generated column. Right, so I'll simply say the generated column name will be a task ID, which will be nothing but simply a number. Right, so we have to simply give it a type, and a task ID will be a number. After this, I will be writing a new column. So under my column, what I'll do, I'll say the column can be nullable. So I'll simply say the nullable thing will be true or false. Right, so for now, let's say the nullable task is false, because this column will be nothing but task title. Right, and the task title cannot be empty. So I'll simply say my task title is nothing but simply a string. Right, after this, I can copy the following column, paste it here, and I'll say this will be the task description. Right, some boilerplate description, and I can say this can be nullable. So I'll simply say nullable to be true. Right, after this, what we can do, we have to write here a new table, that is a new column known as task when created. Right, so here, because we have to also show the task time. Right, so I'll simply say task created at. Right, and the following type will be nothing but a date. Right, and here what we have to do, I have to simply say the following type of my entire table will be, that is my entire column, will be a timestamp. And after this, we have to provide a default value here. So here the default value nothing but simply a runtime function of current time. Right, so here I can simply say current underscore timestamp. So it will be automatically adding the following current timestamp to a level of 6. Right, just like this. And after this, simply add a comma. Right, so I can simply fix all the problems, and we are good to go. Right, so here what I can do, I can say my variable is false here. Right, and the default value will be the current timestamp. After this, after having this thing, what we have to do, we have to simply add one more column known as is task archived, and one more column known as task scheduled at. So here I'll simply say a new column, and here I'll simply say the task scheduled at date. Right, the timestamp will be like type will be timestamp, and the default value will be provided on point. So I'll simply say nullable to be false, because we will be requiring the following value of task scheduled at. Right, now understand the difference between task created at and task scheduled at, because the task created at will be having a default value of current timestamp, but the scheduled time of a task will be provided by the user. Right, and finally we'll be adding one more column here, and the following column will be nothing but known as is task archived, which will be yes, a boolean. So here what I'll do, I'll simply say one more column here, task is archived. Right, having a right spelling, and the following type will be a boolean, and the default value will be here. So here I'll simply say a default value will be false. All the tasks are not archived by the default one, just like this. Right, so this will be our entire column. That is our table. The table will be having a task ID, which will be auto generated one. After this, we will be having a task title, description, task created at, scheduled at, and each task archived. So this will be our boilerplate table for task. After this, what we have to do, we have to simply create some services under our task module, right? So what I'll do, first of all, under my task service, we'll be creating bunch of methods, right? So here what we can do, we can simply go under task service, and I will be creating a new class known as task service, right? Just like this. And also don't forget to export your all the classes, right? Because we'll be requiring all the classes under Nest.js at one point. After this, what you have to do, you have to simply add a decorator to your task known as injectable. It will be auto imported from our Nest common thing, right? So let's quick fix everything. Now you can see I will be getting bunch of red lines here because those are due to the prettier extension that I am using, right? So here we have created our task service, a class, right? So what you have to do, you have to simply write a new constructor for it, and under constructor, what you have to do, you have to simply inject here. So I'll simply say here inject a thing known as task repository, right? Now don't worry, I'll explain this what is happening here, and after this I'll simply say a private variable here. So here I'll simply say a private variable known as task entity should be able to be provided to us via repository, and here this will be requiring a task entity, right? So now let me fix everything, and I'll explain to you about what is happening here. Alright, also let's add a nullable function to it, that is callable function to it, and let's fix it. Right, so right now you can see this is our constructor, right? Under this constructor, you have to simply add the following parameter known as repository, because we are injecting our repository so that we are able to take the advantage of our base entity function, right? Because we have extended our task entity with a class of base entity. So to take advantage of this, what we have to do, we have to simply add the following private property of task entity calling through repository, and to inject the value from a task entity, we have to simply add a decorator of @inject, and here you have to simply write a unique string which will be task repository. In case of task category, it will be task category repository, right? So this is how things will be going on. After this, what you have to do, you have to simply write some common functions. For example, I will be creating a function known as create task. Easy, under this create task, it will be requiring request and response, right? So what I have to do, I have to simply go at the top, and I'll simply say import request and response from, right, from express, right? We have to simply import the following things manually because we don't have to use the default request and response because that will be of not any use. So I'll simply say it will be requiring a request, and also it will be requiring a response, right? Because we'll be taking the input from the user to the request, and we'll be sending output to the user with the help of response, right? So here I'll be calling it a new function here, just like this, right? So right now let's make the following process to be asynchronous, right? So now what we have to do, we have to simply take some input from the user because we have to create a new task. Right, so what I'll do, I'll simply say a constant variable, right? The following thing will be equal to request.body. Let's fix everything. Cool. So right now you can see we are simply taking the following input from the user. So for the input, what we have to do, we have to simply say here a task title because we will be requiring a task title. After this, let's have a task description, task schedule that thing. So here let's task schedule that, and finally. And that's it for now, right? Because we are only need to answer the following things here, right? So here we'll be taking the following input from the user. And once we get the following input, what we have to do, we have to simply create a new instance of a task entity. So here I'll simply say task entity should be equal to a new instance of task entity, right? Just like this. And here what I have to do, I'll simply say task entity dot title should be equal to the task title. Similarly, we can do the other things for our different properties. For example, we will be requiring a description and also a schedule that thing, right? So these are things will be going on. Let's quick fix everything, right? So we are now assigning all the values to our task entity. At the last, what we have to do, I have to simply say task entity dot save, and after this, we have to send some response back to the user. So to that, I can simply use the then phrase here. Then will be giving me some value which will be a type of task entity. It will be throwing a arrow function, right? So here I'll simply say return response.send, and here under send I'll simply say it will be sending a status here to be true and some data which will be the data itself for now, right? So let's fix it everything. Now under TypeScript, you can simply write data equal to data, because the value of a data, that is this is a key and this is the value, right? If I show to you, this is the key and this is the value, right? Now the both of the names are same, so you can provide a single variable here, so it will be automatically interpreting, okay, this is the data and the same value is the data itself, right? So right now, once I have done this thing, what I can also do, I can catch the errors, right? So I'll simply say the error, which will be a type of a error itself, right? I can throw a new arrow function here, just like this, and here I can simply copy my return response thing, paste it here, and I'll say response is false, and the data here is not data but error dot message. Yeah, so this is all things. We have created our first service of create task, right? So what we have to do now, we have to go under our task controller, and under our task controller we have to create a new class, right? So what we have to do now, let's move on a task controller, and here I'll be simply writing a new class. So here I'll simply say a new class known as task controller. Easy. Also let's export it. All right, let's go back, and I'll simply say I am exporting my task controller. Easy. So we have our task controller here. Now as usual, we have to write a decorator to be a controller one, and here it will be a decorator of name to be a task, right? So now also let's do one thing, let's remove the following red lines, so I have to quick fix everything, right? So here under my task controller, I will be creating my first constructor here. So here the constructor will be requiring a private variable which will be read only, and here it will be a task service, because we are taking our data from our task service, just like this. Now once we have done this thing here, we have to simply create some methods. So here I'll be simply create a method known as create task. It will be requiring a request and response. So under our nest.js, what we can do, we can provide an implicit decorator. For example, I can provide a decorator of request, right? It will be taking from nest common, and it will be having a value, right? So it will be having a value of request, right? But also what we have to do, we have to take our request and response one more time. So here I can simply paste our request and response import. So here the request will be type of request, and also I will be requiring an implicit decorator of response, and the value will be response to be a response, right? So this will be our first method. Now let's fix all the autofixable problems, right? So now after this, what we have to do, we have to also add the following thing to be async quotation mark, right? After this, what I'll do, I'll simply say return await this dot. After writing this, you'll be able to access your constructors. That is, I will be able to access my constructor, which is my task service. So I'll simply say task service dot create task. Now it will be requiring a request and a response, so let's provide it. Now let's fix all the problems, and we are done, right? At the last, we have to also call the following constructor, so let's do that as well. Cool. So this is our first controller thing will be going on. We are simply creating a new constructor, and also we are writing a simple method of create task, where we are simply calling out create task method from a task service. Now at the last, we have to simply add a decorator here of the route and a type of method. Now create task will be a type of method known as post. So here I'll simply write a sub route to it to be a create. So to create a new task, the user have to write the following URL of our application /task/create. If I simply say here make, it will be /task/make or /task/add. But industry standard names goes for create for a post request of create task, right? So here I'll simply say create task, right? So once everything is done, what we have to do, we have to simply create some modules and also add a provider, right? So let's copy the boilerplate code. Don't have to write the boilerplate code again and again. You can simply copy and paste them, right? So first of all, what we have to do, we have to simply provide some value under task provider, right? So here instead of connection, I'll simply call it a task provider, right? So here I'll simply say a task provider, and it will be providing me nothing but a task repository. So I can copy the exact name, because the name should be different, should be same here, not different, right? And the use factory thing will be same. But what we'll do here, all right, let's quick fix everything here. So here what we have to do, we have to also do, that is, you have to inject some values, right? So I'll simply say inject some data, and the following thing will be nothing but my database connection, because we have to provide a database connection to all the providers, right? So I have to simply provide your database connection here, and that's it. Let's quick fix everything, right? And finally, what you have to do, you have to delete the following thing. We don't require this. You have to simply remove the following connection as well. So here what I'll do, I'll remove everything, and under my use factory, what I'll do, I'll simply provide here a connection with a proper spelling, and the value will be connection itself. Right, so let's copy the name and paste it here. Right, so we have got this thing, and I'll simply say connection dot get repository, and under this I'll simply add my task entity, and that's it. Right, let's add a comma and let quick fix everything. Right, so let me explain over what is happening here. First of all, we created our boilerplate task provider. We have to provide a task repo, because this task repo is already be used here on a task service. After this, we have to write a use factory function. Under this, we have to provide a connection from a type ORM, and you have to simply call the get repo function, which will be taking the parameter as the entity of task entity. And finally, for all the providers, we have to inject our database connection. Now, this will be our task provider. Finally, what we have to do, we have to simply go under our task module, and we have to simply provide everything here. First of all, what I'll do, I'll simply write my imports, and here my imports will be nothing but simply my database module. So here I'll simply say import database module. After this, I'll be writing some of the controllers, and fortunately we have created one controller which is task controller. Right, after this we have to simply provide the providers, and the providers will be not a connection here but a task provider. After this, we have to also provide a task service, so I'll simply say task service, and also we'll be exporting our task provider and task service. Right, so let's fix everything. Right, so now what will happen here is, first of all, we have to import database module. We have to write a controller, whatever controller we have created under our task module. We have to provide a provider, that is a task provider and a task service. And finally, we have to simply import our app module name, which will be our task module. Right, so let's import this thing from our database. Right, so finally what you have to do, yes, you guessed it right, you have to simply write the following import under our main connections here, just like this. Cool, so once everything is done, let's backspace, and that's it. So this is how things will be going on. Whatever module we will be writing in our application, we have to provide it under our app module, and that's it. So right now, let's remove everything that's not needed here. Right, so fortunately we should be able to run our code now. So let's check over how things will be going on. In case of bugs, let's solve them. Now also make sure under our create connection function, we are writing the following require module here. Right, we are requiring the following ormconfig.ts file. Right, so right now what I can do, I can open my task planner folder, and I can simply write the following command of npm run start and debug. Now after pressing this command, if you don't have any issues or bugs, we should be able to run our backend. So if I simply press this button here, it's starting. Let's wait for it. Fortunately, it should be working. Yeah. So now if you are getting the following screen here, that is if you are able to check all the routes that you have created, you should be knowing that your backend server is successfully started. Congratulations. Now what we can do now, with the help of this route of task/create task, we should be able to create certain tasks. So let's start testing. So for testing, I'll be using Postman. So let's open the Postman. So our Postman is started, and I have also created the following folder one more time for my testing. Right, so here what I have to do, let's remove everything. I'll show you from scratch. Right, so under my Postman, what we have to do, we have to simply write the body of our task. If I go under my task controller, if I go under create task, we'll be requiring these three parameters. Right, so let's paste everything here, and here I'll simply say task title, description, and schedule that. Now let's add a task title here. Let's say cook food. Right, and let's set down task description here, cook food description. Right, and also we'll be requiring a timestamp here. So here I can simply write a following timestamp here. So let's beautify everything. Right, so here's some random timestamp. So if I simply add the following port of 3000 here, and simply write here task/create task, if I press send, you can see we are getting our data back. That is, our database is successfully created, and we are simply able to get our data back, which will be a task title, description, schedule that, etc. and etc. Now if you are getting the following response, and if you have done everything, congratulations Pat, you are back, because we have done a great work today. We have successfully coded our first service. We have connected everything so far, and we have tested it over Postman. Now if you don't know about Postman, don't worry, I will be explaining how Postman will be working in the next tutorials. This tutorial is going quite long, So let's stop here. In the next tutorial, we'll be writing bunch of other services. For example, fetch task, create task category, etc. and etc. Till then, if you have seen this video till this point and if you loved it, hit that like button, follow on me Instagram. I'll see you in the next one.